Hey, thanks for joining me. I am excited to talk about Volume 2, Issue 2 of Wildcats. Now, you might have heard me kind of stop and sort of sound a little bit unsure there for a second, because I just read this comic book. Now, this thing's been out since 1999. And I have to say, it's possible, entirely possible, that I actually read these actual words in this book in completion back when it first come out. But I'm actually starting to doubt that I even did that. Because when I read this story, I'm like, what the fuck was this? What the hell was this? And I'm struggling to kind of verbalize my thoughts. I'm now completely certain, because I'm not surprised, that when this come out, I was, as I've said before, just all about Travis Chare's art. That's all it was about. Ever since he took over Wildcats, I want to say it was issue, I think it was 15 in Volume 1. He started out pretty good and then got really good and then just became exceptionally fantastic. And I just wanted to eat up everything that he did. I was so completely in love with his art, and I still am. I still think it's fantastic. That is the selling point of this book. And then, of course, this is Volume 2 of Wildcats, and the original premise of these characters, it was never really, I was going to say it was never really that interesting. I take that back. I want to say that I think that the premise is reasonably interesting. There's an idea, like the nugget of the idea of what the Wildcats are and what they were kind of in existence for. There's something interesting there, but I don't really feel like it ever came together in a cohesive way that anyone really gave a shit about. It was just often like, these are pretty books with great art and great coloring and colorful heroes fighting lizard monsters, because again, that's what Jim Lee likes. He loves his lizard monsters. I've really come to that realization in the last couple of weeks. Like, boy, does Jim Lee like to put in some scaly reptilian creatures. But as a reading experience, it was just never kind of that interesting. And then Alan Moore took over along with some other writers, James Robinson and stuff like that. And they made some interesting stories, but they ended Wildcats at issue 50. And then they're like, okay, we're going to get Scott Lobdell, combine him with Travis Chare on pencils and Richard Friend on inks. And then we're going to start a whole new chapter of the Wildcats universe. And I just seem to remember, my memory is like, these books were awesome. I'm just realizing now that I'm like, I just like the art. The story, yeah, I'm not saying it's terrible. Issue 1, which I've already reviewed recently on the channel, it was an interesting start because we just start out with Grifter. He's long since kind of parted ways with the Wildcats. He's off doing some secretive kind of stealthy spy missions for his own reasons. He runs into Spartan, who he hadn't seen for a long time, and Spartan seems like he's some kind of like gun runner criminal, but he's also been amped up, super powerful. He can take the kind of damage like he was never able to before. I've talked about this, where Spartan kind of consistently and always gets ripped apart and shot up, and then they kind of thought that was an interesting thing to do with the character, where you can blow him to pieces because you can just build another one, download his brain. But my argument is that it makes him weak, and it makes him seem weak. But now suddenly Spartan is like hyper invulnerable. And so Grifter and Spartan team up. They run into this new character, Noir. He's some kind of like criminal scumball who they kind of end up teaming up with. And then as the story goes on, we find out towards the end here that Jacob Marlowe, the little guy, the little person who was an alien creature, he's like transformed his body. He's like ascending to a higher plane, and this is part of that journey for him to change physical form for his ultimate ascension to wherever. So we catch up basically with Spartan, Grifter, and Jacob Marlowe. And that's what we get in issue 1. And I'm like, okay, this was kind of fine. And there is an ultimate kind of like threat. They're talking about this character named Kenyon, how he's a bad guy. He's doing some bad guy shit, and they got to go stop him. And they don't think that they can rely on the other members of the Wildcats because they're all disbanded and they don't want to get together. And so that sucks. So the next issue, we're going to catch up with some other members of the Wildcats. And I appreciate this concept. They've all scattered. They've all gone their own separate ways. The Wildcats do not exist. So we're going to catch up. Obviously, the cover, we've got VOODOO. Travis Charest doing a great thing. A great cover, great art. He's doing this thing where he pencils it. I don't know if he inks this stuff, but I'm pretty sure he watercolors this. I could be wrong. Again, somebody clarify, but this coloring is all him as far as I know. It just has his name on there. He would do a bunch of art like this. He was getting into some really fine art, some really fine detail. He's also known for being extremely slow, like extremely so. But I'm like, I am willing to like wait for him to produce some fantastic art. So we're going to get into a story with VOODOO, presumably, because she's on the cover. I like the idea that VOODOO is in this costume where she's taken off this mask, because if you understand the character, she's part human and part Daemonite, which is a violent, shape-shifting alien lizard race. And she is genetically, as I understand it, half human and half Daemonite. So that's why she's in this costume. It's kind of a funny and interesting way to kind of represent that she's in a costume. It's an interesting kind of idea. But okay, we're going to catch up with VOODOO. So we start off with it's like a flyer that's hanging up on like a telephone pole or something like that. With VOODOO, as she kind of was back in the day. When we were introduced to the character, she was a stripper. Like, yahoo. That's awesome. And it's kind of like VOODOO all this November at the second. It's just it's like an ad for like, hey, come to our bar, come to our strip club, because the star of the show, VOODOO, will be there. I'm like, okay. And there's Travis Charest doing some great art. An interesting thing, like Richard Friend doing the inks, he's so good. And I've heard him talk about on his YouTube channel in places where he really, really wanted this gig. He really wanted to work with Travis Charest. And they kind of talked back and forth about what they wanted their art to look like together. Travis Charest wanted a really fine line inking, which is what Richard Friend's doing. And that's a great combination. Honestly, once Travis Charest moves on and just starts inking himself, that's one of those situations where that's kind of the best version of the art from Travis Charest as he inks himself. But Richard Friend was like right there. This stuff looks spectacular. I also think that some, if not all, of the lettering is hand drawn in by Travis Charest. And again, somebody could correct me. I feel like I've seen this original art and this stuff is on there. And if it's not all of it, some of it, again, I don't go look this shit up before I start talking. But we get a flyer for VOODOO from back in the day. And so now, here we go. We start out with VOODOO. She is in regular civilian clothes. Now, this is the kind of stuff I like. We're always usually here for, the superhero shit. But I kind of appreciate the idea in a story where we've had superhero stuff, and then we delve off into a new story where these superheroes are just being regular people. It's kind of an interesting thing to see how these characters act and react in regular situations when they've fought hordes of lizard monsters and literally been to space on other planets. And now VOODOO's just grocery shopping. This is great art. The attention paid to all the detail. Travis Charest will get away with doing no backgrounds in all kinds of places, but he's able to compose his art in a way that it doesn't bother me. It never bothered me in the way like some other artists will never put backgrounds. But for some reason, Travis Charest does it, and it just looks great. I'm on board with it. So it's kind of a weird thing, but this is VOODOO seeing a poster of her old self. She's like, VOODOO, no one's called me that for what, 6 months? And she's like, in this flyer, it's been up here it's been more than a year since I performed here in Miami. And she's just kind of like, man, those were the days. I like that VOODOO's changed. She used to have very, very long black hair, but she's got a short cropped hair. So like she's changed herself. I like that. I also like that Travis Charest does not illustrate her in like standard like bullshit female figure proportions. And I'm not saying that, I mean, it sounds like I'm saying that as a big negative, because I like to draw my female characters in those like hyper super hot bod figures. Like if I could draw female figures like any artist, I would pick Mark Silvestri. He draws the hottest, sexiest girls, tiny waist, big boobs, hips, lips, hair, eyes. It's all so beautiful. And I love it. But having someone like this, like Travis Charest, where this is very realistic proportions. And she's still very attractive. It's such great art, such great attention paid to the detail in the pants and the shoes and, you know, the bag of groceries that she's got going on here. Sorry, I don't know if you can hear anything in the background. It suddenly started raining like a motherfucker, and it's been so hot where I live for days and days and days, and I've been begging for rain. And it's ironic that I start recording a video, and then it starts dumping rain, and I bet you the rain stops as soon as I get done recording. But I can hear it through the window. So anyway, moving on. But yeah, I like that Travis Charest, he makes her look very beautiful, but within like more realistic human proportions, but still obviously very attractive. So anyway, she's just kind of interested to see this thing that she found that is about her former life. And then there's a little old man kind of comes up and kind of asks her, he's like, do you have the time? And she's like, to do what? He's like, what? And she's like, sorry, old habit. Like she's making like a dirty joke because it's just kind of how she used to kind of interact with people. She's like, but no, can't help you. Who needs a watch when you have no place to go? So she rolls over to her sweet ride here. I don't know exactly what kind of car that is, but it looks great. So, you know, she gets in her car and she's like talking to herself. She says, that sounded more depressing than I meant it. Fact is, this might be the happiest I've ever been in my whole life. How scary is that? So she gets in the car, takes off. An old man, as she drives away, transforms into lizard monster. Now, this is the Daemonites. These are the lizard creatures that have been the theoretical villains of the Wildcat story. They are the villains, but Alan Moore changed that whole concept around to show that, as would be the case with any species from a planet, some are bad, some are good, some are innocent, some are youthful, some are old. It's an entire species. It's not just like this one kind of like monocultural thing where every creature from this planet, from the planet Daemon or whatever it is, because they're Daemonites, they're all evil, murderous lizards. They're not. It's just that that's who we were fighting. And another thing that I love is that Travis Charest took and basically redesigned them. You get what they are, but this is a way, way more interesting version of the Daemonites with kind of the curved head, the point under his chin and the spikes on his back. Like, I understand what it is, especially because it changes form. That's what these things do. But it's a redesign, and God, is it so much better than anything Jim Lee or any other artist ever did. It's great. And he thinks to himself, or he speaks to himself. He says, intriguing. If anyone on this planet could have penetrated his disguise, it would have been her. I would have expected it would have been her. Apparently, she has strayed farther from her genetic heritage than I would have ever imagined. So, okay, so far I'm like, okay, I'm kind of into this. We're only like literally 3 pages in. And I was talking at the beginning how the story was not that interesting. Or it's more like it's not interesting, but it's also really weird. And we'll get to that, as you'll see. But lizard creatures kind of hunting her down. I'm like, okay, that's interesting. Now we cut to, I have to say, I don't remember back in 99 if I knew right away who this was. I do know who it is because I've read the story, but it does not tell you immediately. So I wonder if you were supposed to be like confused until you get a couple pages in. But this is Jeremy Stone. This is Maul from the Wildcats. You know, the giant purple stupid creature with the giant tusks on his back who just grows big and punches things, and the bigger he gets, the dumber he gets. Now, I don't know who added the concept that if he gets smaller and shrinks his body up, he actually gets smarter. They reverse the concept. You get bigger, you get dumber. But if you get smaller, you get smarter. And they also introduced the concept that he's some kind of brilliant scientist. And I'm sitting here going, when the hell was the concept that he was a brilliant scientist introduced? I'm not saying it wasn't introduced in any of the previous Wildcats comics, but if it was, I sure as hell don't remember. But it is taking the character and making him interesting. And so he's in some kind of science lab with great tech drawn everywhere, and he's talking to an AI that's advising him that he's approached the maximum safe parameters for his encephalous skeletal immersion, and he is not paying attention while the AI is trying to warn him that he's endangering himself. The AI says, there's nothing fascinating about dying in the name of science, doctor. But great art, really interesting, great shot. And he's just so locked in his work. Again, look, this is Maul. See how almost emaciated and starved looking he is? That's what he has to get physically to become super science brainy genius. It's an interesting idea, but again, I don't know that this was ever introduced before. The AI starts telling him, hey, you specifically requested for me to alert you because Maul, Jeremy Stone, he tells the AI to shut up. And the AI is you specifically asked me to tell you if, and he's shut up. And then there's a perimeter breach. So Maul stops and looks, and the AI is hey, by the way, there's a perimeter breach. Also, your body is in a bad way. You need to stop and chill out. And so suddenly the perimeter breach is going on even worse, and Maul is freaking out. He's suddenly he realizes what's going on. He's we have company. Someone is coming, and it's VOODOO. And it says, the AI is saying, biosignature designate roommate. So VOODOO and Maul are roommates. I'm okay, that's a pairing I don't know if I ever saw coming, but I mean, why not? Who is VOODOO going to go shack up with? Warblade? Grifter? No. So she says, home sweet home, and there's another surprise. Who'd have thunk one overnight visit to an old friend would have wound up with me spending the last 3 months here, on his couch no less. So it's explaining how she got here. She came to visit him. She had nowhere to go, and she's been hanging out there for 3 months. She's been kind of wandering around, and now she's just hanging out with him. Back with Maul, he's trying to frantically get out of this liquid, whatever the hell kind of science tub he's in. And he's trying to override the safety parameters to get back to normal size, which it tells him that the decompression normally needs 45 minutes to safely re-expand. And he's no, we have to go now. He doesn't want to reveal to her what he's doing. And so she comes up the stairs. She keeps saying to herself, this is where we get an exposition dump. She says, then again, I didn't see the stripper learns she's an alien hybrid and joins the Wildcats only to fall in love with a handsome Tonka toy coming either. So what do I know? But things are good now. So she's happy to be living a mundane life, just not being a crazy superhero. And I like that concept. That's fun. Maul's trying to jump out of his little science chamber. She comes back into the door here. She says, I hate to jinx it, but this must be what normal feels like. Now, if I could just get over my need to keep talking to myself out loud, it'd be perfect. So VOODOO comes home, and she starts taking off her clothes to reveal she's got a swimsuit on. And again, Travis Charest is illustrating her. Again, she's super hot. I think they established a long time ago in the comics that she's got fake tits. So it's okay to draw them big and round like this, because that's actually been said. Spartan was using his X-ray peepers to see through her that she had silicone implants. I think that's actually kind of funny. But anyway, she still looks reasonably realistic proportions. God, can you hear that rain? I don't know. My little microphone here might actually be drowning it out, but holy shit, is it coming down outside. At least it's watering my damn lawn. But yeah, Maul, he's outside of his science chamber. He comes up out of this like tank thing here, and he's like, I have to re-expand now. I don't, he's not specifically saying it, but it's implied that he doesn't want Voodoo to know what he's doing in here. So while he's in his room and he's re-expanding, he forces himself to go back to like his normal, regular human proportions. And while he does it, he screams in pain, this arg. And there's this great shot with this weird, gross body horror stuff going on. And you get this little headshot insert of Voodoo as she hears him screaming. And she's like, yo, Doc, you relax. You're going to blow out an O-ring. Like, she thinks he's on the toilet taking a giant shit or something. And he's like, careful, you're going to kill yourself. He's like, yeah, tell me about it. So he walks up, and she's coming to the door. Now, again, this is another one of those things. I'm going to bring this shot up. Look at how nicely Travis Charest draws this doorknob. All this ornate detail, the key lock there. I'm like, who else does it like this? I mean, I know there are artists that do things like this, but this is what made Travis Charest stand out. Yeah, but Voodoo's going to come to the door. She's like, you know what? You said you'd hang out with me. We're supposed to spend some time. And just before she gets to the door, boom, he opens up the door and there he is. He's normal looking, human Jeremy Stone. She's like, hey, am I seeing things right? Is that Dr. Jeremy Stone, Nobel Prize winning biochemist wearing a bathing suit? And again, I'm like, when was he ever a Nobel Prize winning biochemist? When did that happen? All Maul did was be big and purple and stupid and punch things. He was never interesting. Suddenly, I'm like, I'm kind of interested in this guy. So she says, you're either swimming in your lab, which you're not doing, which ironically he actually was, or that you're actually going to join me at the pool. And he's like, all right, I'll do that. And she kind of bugs him. She's like, you keep telling me you're going to give me a tour of your secret laboratory you got in your room there. He's like, I will, one of these days, I promise. And she's like, all right, I swear you guard your lab more than I guarded my freaking G-string. She's like, 2 minutes, and then I'm coming in there after you. So it's like, okay, come join me in the pool. So again, Voodoo has no idea what's going on. And then as we cut back to the inside of his lab, you see that there's a digital screen with some information on there, and it's got her name on there. He's doing some investigation on her for something. Now I'm like, again, so far I'm into this story. We're getting human elements. Like these guys used to be punching lizard monsters and robots and all kinds of insane stupidity, going out into space, going to other planets, and now they're just on Earth. They're going to go swimming. That sounds boring, but it's interesting when you know what they've done and where they've been, and the story's going to take off and go into some other place eventually. But to see the human moments, like, you kind of got me. So now, again, I should mention, I'm not sure with these ridiculous credits at the beginning, who's doing the coloring. Because it says Lobdell and Travis Charest, Richard Friend is inks, and it says featured dancer Rochelle Brissenden. I'm guessing that's the colorist. I really like the color palette in this stuff. I think it looks great. So now we cut to just a little bit later. There's Jeremy Stone. He's underwater and he's looking. He says, there is a God. And he's like, uh-oh. And then you cut to Voodoo as he brings his happy ass above the waterline. She's like, I was wondering how long you could hold your breath. She's like very much aware that he's underwater staring at her body. And she's like, did you enjoy the view? He's like, not nearly as much as I thought I would. And she's like, I've never heard that complaint before. He's like, no offense, but maybe you should look behind you. And so Jeremy Stone says, Priscilla, open your eyes. I have something to share. And she's like, hey, it's about freaking time, Doc. Hey, where's my surprise? So she's making it sound like she's ready to get down with him. She's like, you can change your size. You got 9 inches of ding-dong. You could be knocking the bottom out my ass, right? But he's like, actually, no. If you look behind you, you would see. And then here's mysterious girl carrying a gun. And there's a conversation they have back and forth between the two of them where Voodoo's basically telling her to get out of her light. And the girl's like, well, you're kind of brave. because I'm showing up here. I've got a gun and a crew, and we're here to take you. And Voodoo's just kind of very nonchalant about it. And Voodoo keeps throwing like insults at her about her style and her dye job and all that type of shit. Voodoo's not concerned at all. But, Maul and Voodoo get out of the water and like, what do you want? And the girl's like, I want you, Dr. Stone, but your friend here is just too gosh darn plucky to leave behind. So we're going to kidnap you both. I'm like, okay. So now they're on a helicopter ride. Again, these are some great looking helicopters, probably photo traced. I don't care. They actually look like helicopters. It doesn't look like somebody just drew like an oval and then drew a little stick out the back and then put a little kid like little X in a circle to make it look like it's spinning and then just drew a couple little lines and a skid. Like, we all know who I'm talking about. A great looking helicopter. So they're flying off somewhere. And so Voodoo's asking Maul, she's like, do you know who this is? He's like, I know of her. And so they land somewhere, and as they're getting out of the helicopter, Voodoo's saying, like, hey, I keep forgetting Jeremy, because she calls him Jay, but it's Jay, but it's like J for Jeremy, but I keep thinking I wanted to say Jacob, like Jacob Marlowe. But she's basically saying to him, she's like, hey, Maul, is there a reason why you're not growing the size of a house and smashing these fuckers and getting us out of here? Like, they're kidnapping us. And he says to her, he's like, we've been out of the Wildcats and we've been able to keep a low profile by being hidden. If I blow up into a giant monster, we're going to blow our cover and we won't have secrecy anymore. So let's not do that until we have to. She's like, all right, if you say so. So now, anyway, they jump in a car, they drive off. There's this amazing kind of house they go to. And the girl, she's talking to Stone. She's like, the rumor among the science community is that you've been immersed in trans-special homogeneous studies. He's like, immersed is too strong. I dabble. Meanwhile, Voodoo's over here, and random thug is staring at her chest, and she's like, yes, they're real. And the guy's like, sorry, was I staring? So now the story gets into, as Voodoo just kind of stands off to the side, like annoyed that she's kidnapped in here. Girl, who, again, Travis Charest drew a really beautiful face. I really like that. That looks really good. But she's like, basically, she explains that Jeremy Stone, she needs him and his brilliant science brain that they kind of explain here, that she shows him some of the work that they've been doing. And he's like, this is crazy. This is fascinating. I don't know what you're making here, but this is crazy. He kind of explains of what it is and what it's doing and how it's reproducing. And Maul's like, yeah, you're creating some kind of hyper virus, an infection which would render the entire body's genetic structure molecularly inert. He's like, you're basically making some kind of horrible bioweapon. And she's like, yeah, but I can't sell a doomsday disease without a cure. It makes people queasy. That's why I need your help, Dr. Stone. He's like, what? Why would I help you? So, again, great art, great detail. Tech is fantastic. And the girl jumps on him and starts making out with him. And Voodoo's like, what the fuck is that? And Maul, Mr. Jeremy Stone, he's like, ow, what the hell did you do? And you see that she's got a little spike, a pointy thing on her finger, which you noticed, if you go back, that she was slipping it on her finger. She basically infected him with a disease. And she says, yes, you're infected. And she's like, I've been infected 3 hours ago. But she's like, now that you are infected, you will help me make a cure, because you need to save your life and you can save my life. She's like, I needed you emotionally involved. So I'm like, okay, this book took a sudden, like, I was kind of interested in the everyday lives of these characters, but now this girl comes along, kidnaps them, they're making a doomsday disease, and she wants him to make a cure. And then, for whatever reason, whatever's going on, Voodoo's outside, and suddenly there's just a bunch of guns being pointed at her. She's like, what the hell is this? I think it's time for me and my friend to leave. I guess these are all like the soldiers that are with the girl. It's a little unclear. The guns are really, really well drawn. But now suddenly, a grenade is suddenly dropped into the middle of all these thugs where Voodoo's at. It goes off, and Science girl, she's like, well, what the hell was that? And Jeremy Stone's like, dude, don't even worry about it. We're on the clock. We're both infected. We need to solve this science problem quickly. Back with Voodoo, after the explosion, she got like a shard of glass stabbed in her leg. And then some other girl just shows up. She's like, quiet, if you want to live. They pull the spike out of her leg. And so now there's Voodoo and then girl and then this guy. I'm like, well, where the fuck did these guys come from? He's like, it looks like there's 3 of us. And Voodoo's like, well, against what? And they're like, hard say. Boss lady has a lot of enemies. So I'm guessing these guys are part of the thug groups that kidnapped them. But someone else threw a grenade in there, which blew up and killed all of them except Voodoo and then the girl, which is here. I mean, they probably established that she was here with this group of people earlier. I mean, yeah, there's girl there. And then the other guy. It was just a little confusing. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Who threw a grenade? What's going on? But suddenly, Science Girl is like hitting the wall communicator. She's like, what the hell is going on? What do I pay you people to protect me for? We're trying to work. And so the remaining members of her posse are like, what the hell? And they look, and then suddenly it's the brothers' death. And it's 4 of them, but they all have numbers on them that it's 1, 2, 3, and then 5. So I don't know where number 4 is, but these are the brothers' death. What? Where did this come from? So they show up and like, our reputation precedes us. And so now they start shooting at Voodoo, and they're there to raid this girl's house for some reason. But now Maul, he's like, ignore the shooting. We have to figure this thing out. And Maul's like, hey, to the girl, because she's a brilliant scientist too. He's like, have you ever thought about using your vast scientific knowledge as a force for good in the universe? She's like, why the hell would I do that? Okay. Back with one of the brothers' death, he's like, I can't believe all 5 of us fired and didn't hit anybody. And then he suddenly goes, I really hope there's nobody standing behind me right now with a machine gun. So Lobdell's trying to interject some goofy humor. It kind of works, because then we cut to this big splash page of like one of the best drawn rifles I've ever seen. It looks like the gun that like Schwarzenegger was carrying in Predator. But she says, eat shit and die. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Like, I get the point, but it's so disjointed suddenly. It started out so well. I'm just interested in the characters and the human moments. And then once we get into this weird, like, we're kidnapped and then we're being attacked by some other random group of bad guys. So now she's teaming up with the guy she didn't want to be with because they kidnapped her. But now the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And what the hell is going on? And this eat shit and die, I mean, I guess it's funny. But again, I just do remember as a kid reading, 99, I was in my 20s. I was just into the art. I think I just skipped by all this story and just looked at the art and read a few lines here and there. That's all I was doing. Because now that I read this, I'm like, I'm trying to take in what it is. I do remember reading the first part, but once I got to this back end with this action, I'm just staring at the explosions and the beautiful faces and the hyper incredible detail and the amazing looking guns and the cool compositions and the crazy panel work. I wasn't reading this shit. And now that I do, I'm like, this kind of sucks suddenly. It started good. Anyway, she's shooting at them and she's just having some kind of she's speaking it out loud dialogue. She's pissed off that she's here. She's pissed off that Maul didn't grow big and get him out of there. Cut back to Maul. He's finished the science thing. He's solved the problem instantly. He's solved her problem and at the same time created a solution to the thing he was investigating himself earlier in the book. He's like, this is not only your cure, but it's also the missing component to the experiments that have consumed me the past few months. They're like, oh, isn't that awesome? Cut back to Voodoo. Again, great shot of her. And then this shot of the gun she's carrying. That is so well done. She hears a voice. It says, guns, Priscilla? Has it come to that? Weapons only beget more weapons, child. And like, what? So then one of the brothers' death shows up, throws a grenade right at her. And then a hand jumps up there, grabs the grenade, and it looks like it explodes it in his hand. And then the voice says, "See, this is exactly what I'm talking about." And so Voodoo sitting there, she says, "Here, it started out as such a great day. And you are?" And so it's very heavily shadowed, so it's kind of hard to make out. But this is Lizard Creature from the beginning of the book, who was like the old man. He says, "I am someone who has traveled a long way, that I might teach you to at last embrace your heritage." She says, "That now might not be a good time. Is it just me, or has time stopped?" And he says, "Chronal abeyance is the least of your innate abilities." She says, "I can do this?" He says, "In time." And she's like, wow. So now suddenly there's an element that I'm interested in. Like a sage like Obi-Wan Kenobi is showing up to say, you know, you've got a lot of abilities that you've inherited from your Daemonite genetics, and you have no idea. Like, you have only the slightest inkling of what you can do. Like here, he's like, I can stop time for us. She's like, holy shit, that's crazy. So I'm like, okay, now that's interesting. Suddenly we're making voodoo interesting. Now we're going to get back to the weird story. Explosion goes off. We cut back to Jeremy Stone. It looks like he's pounding her in the behind, but he's giving her back shots with this vaccine thing. Basically, we established that they're both infected with the disease. Well, now they're both cured. And so she gives him this disc with the information he needs, but then one of the random bad guys is still alive. He shows up and shoots the disc out of his hand, destroying the information. And so now Maul is backed into a corner with the girl, with the bad guy with the gun pointed at him. He's like, "Are you good at keeping secrets?" She's like, like what? He's like, "What if I expanded my mass to the size of a house and became an indestructible engine of mass destruction? Would you keep that between you and me?" And she's like, "Sure, whatever." And then there's machine gun sound effects, and Voodoo showed up and machine gunned the guy to death, I guess. I don't know where his body went. They make it look like he just kind of like exploded into a pile of smoke. I don't get it. But she's like, "Hey, I saved you. Can we go now?" And so the girl, she's like, "Yeah, don't let me stop you. I must get back to building my own empire." And he's like, "I don't suppose there's any chance you'd give me another copy of this disc that got blown up out of his hands?" Now they're driving away and he's pissed off. He's like, "Rassam, frassam." And she's like, "Relax, Jay. What could be so important?" I'm like, by the time I got to the end of this, I'm like, what the fuck did I just read? This was so weird. I do appreciate, I will give props to them trying something different. We're trying to do not the same thing that Wildcats used to be, because we've seen it and no one cared. I think it just started like going downhill, especially when Alan Moore stopped writing it. They're trying to do something different, but keep the same characters that we know. Like, sure, all that insanity happened, but we're going to do something different. And there were some moments that were interesting. And it all centralizes around, in my opinion, Voodoo learning about inherited abilities that she has no idea about, and her trying to live a regular human life after all that craziness. Like, for the first time ever in a Wildcats comic, I'm like, I want to know the story of what's going to happen with Voodoo. I'm not interested in her past. I'm interested in her future. And then Maul, being a brainy scientist guy, is fun. But then Girl shows up, kidnaps them, takes them off, gets them involved in some kind of like science experiment. They get infected. Weird guys show up and start shooting for some reason. They have to fight them off. And guys get blown up and shot and vanish. And now we're driving home. The end. It's so weird. It's so disjointed. I wonder if this is an example of, like, if you read all of these issues in like a collected edition and all the stories together flow into each other and they make more sense. I suspect that might be the case. I honestly don't remember the majority of what the stories are coming up in future books. Just that the characters do eventually get back together. But holy shit, was this like a weird reading experience. And again, I'm just like, you know what? I was just paying attention to the art. I was just so into what Travis Charest and Richard Friend were doing. It's so good. This is beautiful stuff. But if you eliminate that beautiful art, if anyone else was drawing this book might have been laughed out of the stands. Like, people might have been like, what the fuck is that? but you put Travis Charest on it and it works. So I don't know. I don't know what else to say. I'd be really curious to know what anyone else thinks about this specific story on its own. So I don't know. That's all I've got for this one. Thanks for joining me. As always, I really appreciate it. I'll see you next time.